Okay, we're going to discuss the scope and nature of the Indian Ocean trade routes and trades that they had. Um, this is I guess, a report that's given by this young black girl here. I believe she's in her first years of college or something. So let's go with this. It says, in discussing the history of the coast of East Africa, well, I thought we were talking about the Indian Ocean trade, but maybe she'll get to other parts of it. The coast of East Africa. We know that the Phoenicians, Greeks, and Indians, Arabs visited the coast many years before the Christian period. Yeah, we know that. And a lot of historical documents were written by Arab geographers. Sure, yeah. Many of these reports are written by people who actually sailed the coast of East Africa. They describe the state of affairs when they set down in the Indian Ocean. The Zanj was used to mean black people of the coast, or darkened people, or tan people. Everybody down close to the equator gets a lot more tan, yeah. The most important works are those of Al-Masudi and Ibn Battuta in 1331 AD. There are also chronicles of individuals describing towns and the names of their rulers. She says they were written by Arabs or Kiswahili. Well, I wouldn't say it was Kiswahili. The people in the coast over there don't even speak a Kiswahili dialect. It's more of a Afro-Asiatic language all through that area, which Asiatic, so it tells you where that kind of come from. Well, let's take a look at the region of that. Yeah, if we're gonna go anywhere in North Africa, we're really looking at Afro-Asiatic and Caucasoid languages, of course, and they bleed up into the Asia. But so it wouldn't be Swahili that they would be doing; it would be Afro-Asiatic. Yeah, and wouldn't have been a Bantu language either. And the Bantu people, and of course, it's a late Bantu expansion that came down. The Khoisan were here originally, and before that, there were Caucasians through here. They find about where my pointer is here near Chewa. There's the Hoffmeyer site, which they found Caucasians in, and even down right here at the tip in the Africanus area, they found in Blamos caves the red ochre and things that go back to all the Cro-Magnon burials and stuff that date to 100,000 years BC. So, yeah, it's kind of neat. Let's go back to this. What is he? So, no, I would just generally say that it would be the Arabs that would have chronicled all of this. Some institutions have suggested that Egyptians, Phoenicians, Persians may have to East Africa coast centuries. She's missing a word. May have voyaged to East African coast centuries before the birth of Christ. A Greek historian, Herodotus, gives us a brief account of the navigation area of Africa by the Phoenicians. The Egyptians, on the other hand, voyaged to the land they called Punt near the south or East African coast. Let's look at that Herodotus map here, too, that they give of it here. Let me just pull this up. Let's go with Herodotus's map. So looking at Herodotus's map here, let's see if I can show you the voyage of Necho. You can see all of these, and it looks odd. It almost looks like a little rounded skull shape or something, but this is generally it. And so I'm going to pull in on it a little bit. You can see they didn't quite draw it correctly. India doesn't even stick down at that time. They don't even draw sub-Saharan Africa at all, and on Herodotus' map itself, it shows you this voyage that Necho made in about 600 BC, supposedly circumnavigating all the way around. They started out here and ran out, and they had to come back in through the delta. And in doing so, they charted it, but they, I guess, didn't chart it well like a map because they don't know sub-Saharan Africa actually exists. Later, there's a troop that comes out here, and they don't know how far they go down the edge here. They talk about weird things they see, though, and a fire mountain, like a volcano type thing, and these people that can run faster than horses, and weird things. So a lot of people look at that as being quite conjecture or maybe just exaggeration. But anyhow, so that's it right there. They also show that the Nile here comes up and whips at Meroe and comes out, and it goes all the way over here and goes over to the Atlas Mountains, and over in the Berber area at the Atlas Mountains, and of course that's where Atlantis is supposed to be, the ancient place of Atlantis. And there's the recot structure that's right there that's circular, looks just like it. So yeah, so I'm gonna say that yeah, Greek historian, yeah, gives you an account, but they don't know sub-Saharan African exists really. So tell you that the Egyptians, on the other hand, voyaged to the land they called Punt near the south or east African coast. Yeah, well, it could be there or it could be over on the Yemen side. They definitely show and tell that they have to go out into the Red Sea and cross. So, and it takes them like 25 days to get there. So it doesn't seem like it would be right up there. It may be across. And of course, the depictions they show are these people in these stilt houses, and it shows the ocean, and in the ocean it shows some ocean fish, so they're well aware of that, and that might lead and indicate that it was some villages right on the coast. But we're not going to go there today. The Romans may have also visited the Indian Ocean coast. This was because of the early Christian era. Rome was expounding, you mean expanding? Was a military power and was pushed by a great increase in trade, especially in the Indian Ocean. I wonder we're going to talk about the rest of the Indian Ocean instead of just the African coast. A Greek merchant living in Egypt had written a report, The Periplus of the Erythraean Sea. This was the earliest document that discussed East Africa and the most informative. The Romans and Greeks referred to Indian Ocean as the Erythraean Sea. Another document was the Ptolemaic geography, and then we just looked at that, and it showed you that they called that the Australis Sea, and that's where they get the idea of Australia. It means southern, and also austral has something to do with stars, and they talk about the Sea of Stars, and how in one ancient account how the sea was glass slick, and that you could see the stars above and below. I did an old video about it, and it shows this perfect reflection of all the stars. It's kind of neat, but neither here nor there. So according to these documents, the East African coast was known as Azania, and the land of Zanj to the Arabs. Its capital town was known as Rapta. The site of Rapta is believed to be near the river Rufiji. It's got Fiji in its name. Traders from Arabia visited the coastal ports on dhows assisted by northeastern monsoon winds, so they came in their boats and everything. These Arabs knew the language and the Azania, and they married with the Bantu people. I believe that's conjecture there. They're not sure. And of course, they ended up being quite admixed, the Negroids there, so, and Ethiopians and stuff like that. And all of the East Coast has got a high Caucasoid admix, 40 to 50% in some areas. So it's looking like maybe they came in as a little bit late invader and mixed back with them. But I wouldn't say they necessarily married with the Bantu people, because these aren't Bantus. They don't have a Bantu language. They're Afro-Asiatic people. They're the East Africans. So she's trying to project Bantus over into a place that they never really were. But also the marriage back and forth could have been something very much like concubines or even slaves traded back and forth. So, because this dating that we have here is definitely into the Islamic slave trade by quite a bit. It started some 900 years before the Americas were even found in 1492. So, yeah, and this is talking about 1300, 900, and 1300. So, yeah, quite well into it. But anyhow, we were told that the people of Azania were very tall. So what are we going to, let's see what these Arab guys are. We're told that the people were very tall. They were pirates, and they had a chief in each place. Since they had boats, they were sea travelers. And yeah, but the black people didn't have any boats. They weren't sea travelers. There's not been a really documented Negro people that have made seaworthy boats ever. Negroes don't really swim, actually, either, too. They're not really a coastal people, or maybe a swimming people in general, you would say. Although a lot of them can be taught to swim, it's not seemingly a general type of thing. Just like they're not really a mountain type people. But that's another issue. They were, so then she goes on to say, they were Negroid and Bantu speaking people, but this is in doubt. Well, then why would you even say it? Because it's possible they weren't even Negroids, but it says Bantu-speaking people, and I think I just showed you that the whole people in the area are all Afro-Asiatic and not even Bantus. So she keeps trying to project that in there, and I wonder if we're going to talk about any other places, maybe India, since it's the Indian Ocean and trades that go there, but she's not really talking about that. So she's supposed to be discussing this, but we are told that the people of Azania were tall. Okay, so cool. They could have been Cushitic. So now she starts reaching, I guess. They could have been Cushitic like the present-day Ethiopians, which of course are an admix and a late admix, or even Indonesians who came and settled in Madagascar and the coast of Kenya and Tanzania. It's entirely true that it has it in there, and they could be extremely tan there, and that would be who they were talking about. But there's an odd genetic admix that goes into these Ethiopian area people. A thing of note, right, that I have to tell you though, is when Herodotus talks about Ethiopians, he's talking about all over the place, not necessarily Ethiopia, the country that we know about. He talks about Ethiopia as being much stretched out in that map there. It showed, across where would be the Saharan boundary. These people much more tan, and then they had some that were over there by the Atlas Mountains too, that they called this in one of the maps. And then Yemen is described as the sand people, and also as being Ethiops. And then also the south part of India was also called that same. Of course, they had the trade routes and things going by then. Let's take a look at the trade routes real quick so we can see what we're kind of looking at. Just backing it up here. Really? So here's the Indian Ocean. You see it's really kind of based around India and China, and it comes to the edge of Africa, but she's not really discussing that. Some beautiful islands here. Yeah, here's what I wanted to kind of see. So the red lines there are kind of the spice trades, and on ground mainly. And so coming up the Nile, they would stop and twist off right there and then come out and hit the Red Sea and take off. And the blue ones are all aquatic, of course, showing you the trade routes that run through here and up into Europe. Also runs down into Somalia, perhaps as far as down into here, and across Persia, into Sumeria, India, even over to China and Java, and of course the Silk Road up north and how they attach. You can see the attaching points and how they attach to each place. And people think of the Silk Road sometimes as being one road, but it's really not. It's a series of them, a high road and a low road here and so on. And people even got smart enough to eventually over time to pick a destination and shoot straight across rather than just hugging the coastline that you see here. So this is the Indian Ocean, and it really doesn't just involve right here, but she's trying to really have a report just about that. So a little bit off on her report. I would just have to give her a mark for that, I guess you'd say. Where are we at? We are told that the people of Azania were tall. Arabs of Yemen came to East African coast to buy products such as ivory, turtle shell, rhino horns, and coconut oil. The main goods of the Arab traders bought to exchange these commodities were metal tools such as hatchets, daggers, and lances from Yemen. All these were made of iron metal, which the people of Azania had no knowledge of how to smelt. Right? They also brought glass vessels, wine, and wheat as gifts to get the goodwill of the inhabitants. Al-Masudi tells us between the 9th and 10th century, ships from the Persian Gulf came to the coast, also from Oman. According to him, the people of Zanj were governed by kings who maintained armies, and it was a religious mind society. The oxen were used as means of transport during the war. The people of Zanj cultivated bananas, millet, and coconut on the islands. And bananas don't come from Africa. They come from islands in Madagascar and all the areas out there, and are cultivated from 5 to 8,000 BC. And so the bananas and the coconuts would have been brought to them by these people. And so she goes on to say there were a flourishing trade in ivory, which was shipped to Oman and China. And Al-Masudi argues that the Zanj people were Bantu-speaking Negroid. Some of these people were cannibals and sharpened their teeth. Well, he argues that they were Bantu-speaking Negroid. I don't believe so. I believe they were actually Afro-Asiatic. It shows if they were Bantu, it would have been a weird thing, this one little pocket of Bantu, when the Bantu expansion shows to be much later in coming into this time. So anyhow, there's just slight critique on it here, I guess. I don't know, man. Because she didn't really discuss the scope and nature of the Indian Ocean trade and only tried to talk about East African and try as hard as she could to fit Bantus in there somehow, I'm going to give the black girl here perhaps a B minus. I'll be nice. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.